So good evening everyone. So this is the video for week 7. So we would be talking about like critical criminology in this. So first I would like to talk about what critical criminology is. So critical criminology is basically a study it studies how crime and criminal justice systems serve as tools of social power. It also explores how laws, policing, and punishment can reinforce inequality and marginalization. So, defining it is difficult because many approaches that challenge power structures can be considered critical criminology. So, the main focuses of critical criminology is uh, how crime is defined and who gets labeled as a criminal, and it also focuses on questions about who benefits from the legal system and who is harmed by it, and it also aims to expose injustices within criminal justice institutions. That is why it's called critical criminology. So critical criminology was like the foundations for critical criminology is from some of the approaches are like the Marxist approach. So, according to the Marxist approach, crime is linked to economic inequality and class struggle. And instrumental Marxism is the law directly serves the powerful. So it says that law is funded by the powerful people who has money, who have like reputation. And so, in accordance with that, the law only serves the powerful people. And the next thing is structural Marxism. So, structural Marxism is the legal system keeps like capitalism stable, even if it sometimes acts against individual elites. So, Foucault's perspective on this about the Marxist approach is it only focuses on how power works. Oh, sorry. How power works through discipline and surveillance rather than just economic control. And it also argues that like modern societies like control people through institutions. Um such as like schools, prisons, or workplace. So the things that are being taught in schools, they can modify our books, the education that is given to our children to modify their thinking in accordance to make them think that the current law system is super amazing. And the next thing is I would like to talk about like abolition thoughts. So abolition thoughts is we should be thinking about alternatives for like prisons and policing, and it also like challenges the idea that punishment is the best way to achieve justice. Sometimes there are numerous ways to actually or there are more ways to actually overcome a problem than just giving criminals the punishment for it. And it also like looks at the way to build safer communities without like relying on incarceration. So there are some methods in critical criminology for research. So the first thing is like freedom of information requests. So it used to expose hidden practices in policing and the justice system. And the next ones are computational methods. So it all basically uses like hidden or forbidden data that is collected by secret data collecting agencies such as CIA and NSA to uncover like patterns of discrimination and bias. So basically, like in conclusion, it's critical criminology always remains open-minded and it's always evolving with time, and it continues to challenge like dominant systems of power in the justice system. The future for like critical criminology includes like new approaches like anarchist criminology and quantum criminology. So that's all about uh so that was all about critical criminology. And the next thing we would be talking about is cultural criminology. So, the introduction to cultural criminology. What cultural criminology is? So, cultural criminology is basically a perspective that re- revitalizes the study of crime and crime control. So, it also like adapts older criminological theories to modern day contexts. And the central idea to this perspective is the idea that culture is dynamic and it's always shaping and shifting and changing. And cultural criminology examines the relationship between culture, crime, and crime control. It also like investigates how certain cultural practices are criminalized nowadays, which didn't used to be criminal back in the days. So next up is like theoretical influences. So, cultural criminology is like influenced by multiple criminological traditions. The first one is the Chicago School of Sociology. So it examined urban environments and social behaviors, and the deviance theory of like 1960s. So it particularly studied about like subculture and labeling theory. And the next up is like critical criminology's actually unique focus. So critical criminal like traditional criminology often like focuses on background factors like age, social class, and racial identity. So but like cultural criminology, the thing with that is it actually focuses on the foreground of crime. It examines the like immediate pleasures and emotions experienced by offenders. The what do they feel after committing a crime? And this approach was described by actually described as like the existential foreground of crime. Uh, the next step is like crime and consumer culture. So, cultural criminology argues that crime is increasingly influenced by consumer culture. And in a world dominated by advertising and branding, crime is often shaped by desires for status and identity, materialistic aspirations, or the thrill of like just the thrill of it. So we often see movies about gangsters having a like really lavish and Porsche life, being respected by everyone around them. So these kind of things actually like create a mindset in the people that these things are actually good for them. But it's not. We all know the truth about it. And crime itself is often like stylized and packed for public consumption. So the next is like actual like the symbolic meaning of crime. So crime is not just an act, it also holds like very deep symbolic meaning. It is often about identity, resistance, and like social status. For example, let's say people do get like gang tattoos and street graffiti are symbols of like belonging and defiance. So cultural criminologists explore how like these symbols affect the way crime is understood and controlled. So Next up is like power and crime control. So cultural criminology is also concerned with power. It asks like who defines crime, who benefits from these definitions. So laws often like target marginalized group, reinforcing social like inequality. Always the people who are poorer, who are weaker, are always targeted by the law. And crime like control strategies like surveillance and policies, which are shaped by like cultural narratives. So just to conclude, cultural criminology is like a rapidly evolving field. It's always changing as cultures always develop and a new thing is always added to cultures. So it challenges like conventional approaches by focusing on like culture, media, and emotions. So if we consider about the future researches on cultural criminology, so the impact of social media on crime narratives is one of the part, and also how crime and justice are portrayed in visual realities. Thank you.